Hey everybody, this is Eric Bond, the founder of BeatTheGMAT.com, and thanks so much for joining our webinar for today. We have a really special show. It's called the Super Tough Verbal Challenge Webinar. I know that everyone here struggles with verbal from time to time on the GMAT, and fortunately, we have an expert from Master GMAT join us today. His name is Isaac Bettan. So just a little bit about Isaac, and also a little bit about Master GMAT. So Isaac has been called a Canadian verbal section powerhouse by some. So he's been studying and preparing students for the verbal section of the GMAT, GRE, SAT, TOEFL for many years, over 10 years in fact. And he actually hails from Canada in Montreal, where he is a teacher for not only Master GMAT, but also teaches at the British Council as well as Simon Fraser University in British Columbia. So we're very fortunate to have you today, Isaac. Welcome.
Hey guys, thanks.
And before we begin, I also wanted to say a couple things about Master GMAT because I think many of you here are perhaps new to hearing the Master GMAT brand name. So they're a new sponsor to Beat the GMAT, and one of the reasons why our community is working with Master GMAT is we have been so attracted to the technology that they're developing in preparing students for the GMAT exam as well as standardized tests. So Master GMAT is unique in the sense that they are focusing on a cutting-edge proprietary artificial intelligence technology where they're trying to create a virtual private tutor for you. It's a really unique approach, a technology-driven approach to preparing for your GMAT. I've had a chance to do a test run of the Master GMAT program myself in a variety of occasions, and I'm very impressed. So for more information about Master GMAT, go to mastergmat.com after this event and check out their services. So that being said, Isaac, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, it's a pleasure.
I'll let you run it from here.
Okay, cool. All right, guys. Hey to all of you who are out there. Unfortunately, I can't see you as my students right now, but we're going to do this virtually. So, okay, what we're going to be doing today is looking at 3 verbal section questions, 2 sentence corrections, and 1 critical reasoning question. And the idea basically is to give you a sense of how to attack those kinds of questions and for you to see how we at Master GMAT can help you figure these out. So what's going to happen is the following. We're going to give you for each question about 2.5 minutes to solve and basically submit your answer to a link provided. We're going to do this 3 times. So we're going to do a question. You're going to have 2.5 minutes. We're going to go over the answer choices, and we're going to obviously reveal the correct answer choice. And then I'm going to give you another 2.5 minutes, and so on and so forth. You're also going to be able to, at the end of my explanations of each question, ask a question or 2 if you have them. And then we're going to actually announce the winner of the raffle. We're actually offering a free Master GMAT standard course. And basically how that works is the people who actually get the questions correct, all 3 questions correct, are going to be automatically thrown into the raffle, and 1 person is going to be chosen as the winner. Okay, I hope that's clear. So here we go. Eric, if we could show them basically the question. Yep. And from here, we're going to give you 2.5 minutes. It's a sentence correction question. Go for it.
Time starts now. Isaac, I think that's time. So I guess you can move on to the explanation.
Okay, great. All right, guys. So I hope that wasn't too difficult for you. What we're going to do is, it's a long question, so we can already assume that they're going to play with the actual structure of the sentence. That's something we have to already look at. Now, at Master GMAT, we teach students a step-by-step approach to attacking these kinds of questions, and we call this the work order. Now, we have several steps to the work order, and the first one is obvious. You read the question, and you try to determine whether there's a grammatical mistake in the underlined portion, and then you eliminate any of the answer choices in which the same mistake appears. So let's take a look. You already read this, so I'm not going to repeat it. But the first thing that we see basically when we're doing a work order at Master GMAT, we teach something called noticing the stop signs. Stop signs are a red flag which tells us that we must check something specific that may point us towards an error. And one of the specific things we teach, one of the stop signs, is basically modifiers that begin with ing and that show up at the beginning of sentences. Now you can see the word premiering. The word premiering is obviously a modifier, and what we need to see is what it modifies, which usually comes after the first comma, and we see that it modifies the creators. Now, this doesn't make much sense. Premiering off Broadway in 1967, the creators of the musical Hair were songwriting duo James Rado and Jerome Ragney. That doesn't make much sense. It's not the creators who are premiering. It's obviously the musical itself, the musical Hair. So right away, we have some kind of strange modifier over here. So we have to obviously eliminate answer choice A. We can get rid of that because it's exactly the same thing. But just for the sake of seeing how it looks, let's click on A. Now notice we have a time awareness tool. Now the time awareness tool basically makes students more aware of how long they take to answer a question. So with more practice, students become super conscious of how long each question takes. Now obviously we took much longer here, but I'll put it at 1 minute. Click OK. We see we have a nice little explanation. Obviously, the answer is incorrect, and we see that it's grammatically incorrect. And we see that we also have to notice the stop sign for dangling modifiers. And the stop sign tells us that when we have this kind of modifier, we need to check for verbs that are either in the third form or with ing. We also check what is separated from the rest of the sentence by a comma, and usually it appears at the very beginning of the sentence. So these kind of words, these ing words, tell us right away that we need to check for modifier, dangling modifier error. Now, the other nice feature we have is the try again button. So instead of just spoon feeding you the answer, you can actually click. Based on the information you've just gotten, you get to try it again. All right, so obviously A is now gone. Now look at the rest of the answer choices. None of the other answer choices except for E actually repeat the same mistake. Now in E, premiering off Broadway in 1967, songwriting duo James Rado and Jerome Ragney, well, it's not the duo who are premiering, so we could get rid of E as well. Now we're left basically to B, C, and D. Now, the next step in our work order after we've eliminated vertically all the original mistakes is basically to look for grammar mistakes within the sentences, the rest of the answer choices themselves. So in B, let's look at what happens here. We see that right away, we've gotten rid of the problem with the modifier. And we basically have a whole sentence in which there are two clauses. It starts with composer Gelt McDermott, but we have two actual clauses: who won a Grammy Award, etc., and all the way to which premiered off Broadway in 1967. However, we do not have an actual verb for composer Gal McDermott, which means that the sentence is actually incomplete. It's what we call a fragment. Basically, each clause needs to have its own subject and verb. In this case, we have two clauses, each with its own subject and verb, but the third one, the main subject, composer Gal McDermott, now is missing a verb and is therefore an actual fragment. So that's our grammar mistake. We can get rid of that. Let's go to C. In C, the musical Hair was created by songwriting, etc., etc., etc. We have to look for a grammar mistake at this point. Now, what happens over here? We don't really see any grammar mistakes in C, nor do we see any grammar mistakes in D. However, the next step would be to basically look for a stylistic mistake. Now, do we have a stylistic mistake somewhere? Well, one of the stylistic mistakes we actually teach, one of the stop signs, is actually, take a look at this little pronoun, and it premiered off Broadway. Now, the it is a pronoun that can easily refer to a few other singular nouns in the sentence that appeared previous. That poses a bit of a problem. Although ambiguity mistakes can be correct, usually we eliminate them, but we have to check D, obviously. Now, D, doesn't have a problem with premiering off Broadway. It is the musical here that is actually modified. We have no other problems in terms of grammar, nor do we have any stylistic issues. We don't have the problem of the pronoun. Therefore, altogether, D is better than C. C has an ambiguity, pronoun ambiguity. D is a little better. Therefore, we're going to click on D. And indeed, we get a well done. It corrects the dangling modifier mistake in the original question, and we actually know what's being modified. And that's this particular question. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Over here, they're going to have 2.5 minutes as well, so they can start it now. And those 2.5 minutes are going to include also the submission time in this one.
Great. So time starts now. Okay, Isaac, that's time.
Okay, great. All right, so let's go over this one. In the same way, after you've read it, basically the first step in the work order is to look for an actual grammar mistake in the underlined portion. So we need to look for kind of stop signs, those little things that are going to stop us and make us think. So obviously little grammar things we need to look for. Firstly, we have obviously another modifier starting with benefiting, and we notice that it does indeed modify vaudeville theater. That makes sense. It's vaudeville theater benefiting from the popularity. Not only that, but we have a few parallelism stop signs here. We have one that's a list, such as minstrelsy, animal shows, and magical acts. Those are all okay. Magic acts fits in. It's a noun as well. And importantly, we also have another parallelism that's created by the not only, which in this case, well, in all cases, not only should also be continued with a but also. Now the problem in this question is that not only is just followed by but, and that is an immediate mistake. So we're going to pay attention to that one and see that in A, we can obviously eliminate that, but in all the other ones, that problem is actually fixed. The not onlys also have but also, so we can't eliminate any more based on that. Therefore, what we're going to do, since we don't see any more grammar mistakes, is go straight to the answer choices. So let's go with B. B, basically what changes over here is that, let's take a look. We have the not only, and that's also continued with the but also. The benefiting indeed modifies the vaudeville theater. We do not really see any other mistakes over here. So we're going to move on to the next one. In C, right away, take a look at the word magicians. Magicians, which changed from magic acts. Now, magicians is supposed to be part of the list that says, in the original question, minstrelsy, animal shows, and magic acts. However, although magicians is fine in terms of being the right part of speech, it's a noun just like the other two items, there's a bit of a problem because here all three items are actually examples of genres, and magicians are not a genre. So one of the things we really do need to notice when we're doing these is basically that there has to be some kind of not only a parallelism, a proper parallelism in terms of part of speech, all verbs, all nouns, etc., but also it has to be logical, and magicians are not a genre. And based on that, we could already eliminate C right away. Now, in D, what happens? It goes back to magical shows, which is fine. However, pay attention to the other parallelism, the not only and but also. What happens after not only is we get a verb, a conjugated verb, appealed. But what follows but also is a noun phrase, it's widespread success. Now, obviously, we can't have two completely different parts of speech in a parallelism. Therefore, we could get rid of D. We're left with E. Let's just make a note. We're left with, E as the last answer choice. Magic acts also works in terms of benefiting. However, take a look at the end, what happens. But also because it incorporated. Now, if we continue this on with the original question, it doesn't make much sense. But also because it incorporated of sophisticated financial management actually doesn't fit. We cannot say because it incorporated of sophisticated financial management. That doesn't make much sense. In addition, had widespread success is not actually as concise as our original answer, and it's not as concise as enjoyed widespread success. It's not as awkward. So therefore, we can get rid of E as well, and we're left with B, which is indeed our answer. We have obviously our time awareness tool. Okay, and we got it basically. Okay, so we fixed our parallelisms in both cases and got rid of the stylistic flaws, and we're all good over here. So Eric, that was this one. Hope you guys didn't have too hard a time with this, and we're probably ready to go on to the third one.
We have one question. It's a follow-up question to choice D. And the question is, D says magic shows versus magic acts. Is that the reason to eliminate D?
No, it's not. Magical shows are still a genre. So that still works in terms of logic. D is specifically eliminated because of the faulty parallelism that takes place with not only but also. Not only is followed by a conjugated verb, appealed, whereas but also is followed by a noun phrase or noun. It's widespread success. When you have not only but also, you actually need proper parallelism. What follows not only should also follow but also in terms of part of speech and in terms of logic. And that's why we eliminated D.
Gotcha. Thank you for clarifying that. And a message to Reshma Sajnani from Twitter. Don't feel bad that you missed this question. It's a super tough verbal question. These aren't meant to be very easy. So that's why we have Isaac here to walk us through this. So don't feel bad. This is a challenge for all of us.
Yes, and the next one should be a pretty nice challenge as well. Get ready, guys, for a critical reasoning. It's going to take some thinking power. Okay, so are we ready to go with that one, Eric?
I think so.
Okay, cool. Let's go to the third one. Here we go. So 2.5 minutes to read this lovely question and try to answer it and submit your answer.
Okay, folks, time starts now. Okay, everyone, that's time.
Okay. I hope that wasn't too crazy because it is quite a bit of reading, but you know, normally in the verbal section you would get a little less time than this, unfortunately, but this is what makes it a little more difficult as well, is the amount of information you have to actually process. Now, in critical reasoning, the work order is obviously a little bit different than the sentence correction, and one of the most important first step in our work order is to read the question stem. Now, we must determine what kind of question this is. And just based on the word flaw that we have, we know that this is an argument flaw question. Now, what does that mean? It means that we must locate a flaw in the conclusion or in the underlying assumptions. This isn't like a conclusion weakening question. This is an actual finding of an existing flaw in the conclusion that is given. Now, obviously, we know this from the word flaw. And we also know that in such questions, the conclusion is always incorrectly deduced from the premise or premises. Now, we go to step 2 of our work order, which is to break down the argument somehow. We can see now, with practice, we get really good at basically figuring out what conclusions are and what premises are and what assumptions are. In this case, we know that the conclusion is borne out by the word plan. We know that that's the conclusion. We know that basically this is the plan of the authorities. This is what they would like to do in the future as based on the premises which all come, in this case, they don't always, but all come before the conclusion. So the first part, the first sentence, some kind of flaw in that conclusion. We must find perhaps something that tells us that the plan will or will not work, or perhaps that the water rations will affect the growers, or how this will help the nursery owners not lose revenue or even gain some money. We have to look for something along those lines. We should think in terms of those lines. Now let's go to answer choice A, one by one. In answer choice A, we see that here, what they're talking about, the focus has actually changed from what's happening to the nursery owners to how this plan is going to be detrimental to the revenue earned by the local government for such services. This is kind of strange. Pay attention to how the focus has actually changed to the local government's revenue. Is this even relevant? Not really. The plan has to do with helping the nursery owners, and even if the government loses money, this actually has no effect on whether the nursery owners will or will not succeed after such a plan is instilled. So really, local government and what it earns is completely irrelevant to the question over here. Let's go to B. In B, basically, this is a bit tricky because here, what happens in this answer choice is that there's a negative side effect that is shown, right? It says, by punishing the residents for financial difficulties experienced by agricultural business owners, the authorities risk harming the way they are perceived by the residential population. Now, pay attention. Here, we're talking about a negative side effect. Does that necessarily mean that the plan can or cannot work? The plan can still work even if there's a negative side effect. Here, they're actually talking about negative side effects in future endeavors. We don't so much care about the future endeavors. We care about whether this plan is going to actually work, not about any endeavors in the future. So we can get rid of B as well. Now in C, pay attention that they're providing us with new data. They're introducing new data to actually undermine the conclusion. Now, we usually do this in conclusion weakening questions. However, we're not looking for new data, but for a logical flaw in the conclusion which already exists. We have no idea whether the 25% figure is correct, incorrect, and how that's affected really. In fact, we can't know whether it's logical or illogical. So really, introducing new data doesn't really help us find a logical flaw in the conclusion that's already given. All right, so let's go to D. D is again quite tricky. Let's see what it says over here. In D, like in B, there's a negative result from the plan. But the plan, regardless of a drop in property values, because they're talking about lowering the market value of the area's residential properties, do we care about the actual property values? Do the property values have an actual effect in terms of the plan? Can the plan still work despite a drop in market value of the property? Well, yes, it can. It can still work. So really, there's no logical flaw in this argument, which means that basically we're left with E. And in E, we see that the introduction of water rationing can improve the nursery's goods, but at the expense of revenues they earn. Why? Because with such irrigation curtailment, basically people may actually stop buying garden plants. If people actually stop buying garden plants, this will obviously adversely affect the nurseries. They're not going to be able to sell their wares at all. In this case, E shows us that there's an actual flaw in the conclusion, that the plan can actually fail. If you actually start water rationing, this can adversely or negatively affect the nursery owners. And that's why E actually shows us the flaw, as we can see. Okay, so that's a little bit of a tricky question and certainly long, but this is how we attack it. Okay, so basically what we're going to do now, people, is we're compiling as we speak all the data. And out of all the people that actually came in, 26 people submitted their answers on time. Not bad, actually, because that was not a lot of time, especially for the last one. And 5 people got the actual questions right. Not bad, again, quite tricky. These are not easy questions to solve. And what we're going to do is put the 5 people through a sort of automatic raffle. And pretty shortly now, we're going to get the name of the winner. So if everyone can actually hold on a few seconds here, we're going to generate the actual winner.
And while we're waiting for the winners to be announced, Isaac, I'd just like to make a quick announcement that Today is the last day of a Master GMAT promotion where Master GMAT is offering some amazing discounts for our community. They're actually letting the Beat the GMAT community register for 2 months access for their quant course, which is a $275 value for free. So that's if you register through Beat the GMAT, you can get access for 2 months to Master GMAT's quant course for free. And in the live chat box, we'll be sending some information on where you can go to learn more, as well as Master GMAT is offering for the last day today 50% off its standard plan, 5 simulation tests for $39. That's a $78 value normally. And as well as if you make a purchase of any Master GMAT course between, well, today's the last day. If you make a purchase today, then you'll be automatically enrolled in an $8,000 scholarship raffle. So that's pretty tremendous and very generous on the part of Master GMAT. So we'll be sharing that link of where you can find out about these special deals in the live chat box. And at the very least, you guys have to check out that free quant course. I mean, you can't really beat that price, right? So,
Okay.
take it away, Isaac. Just I don't know if there's any updates yet on the.
Yeah, not yet. It's just going to take 3 minutes or so. Okay. But what I'm going to do a little bit over here is I'm actually going to talk about, how these kind of questions in general, how we help people solve these kind of questions. So they'll get a good idea of what we do. Okay. Now, when we see such tough questions, it usually means that we deserve to be there. Now, what does that mean, deserve to be there? It means that Master GMAT is actually an adaptive program. So it adapts itself to the user's needs in terms of level, in terms of time. In terms of time, obviously, Master GMAT can be used wherever you want to use it and whenever you want to use it, as long as you have an internet connection. Now, in terms of level, what this means is, as an adaptive program, it personalizes the learning. So if a person is actually weak, the program will slow down enough to make sure that the student understands what he or she is doing in order to move up in level. So the program is always calibrating in step with the actual student. The student's not going to be getting super advanced question if they're not at that level yet. Now, vice versa, if a student is actually really good at something, there's no reason, as opposed to other methods of, there's no reason to actually study on material that is of a lesser level. So if someone's at an advanced stage of critical reasoning, argument flaw questions, they're not going to get the most basic questions there. They're going to be taught how to go up to the highest levels very quickly, and they're going to remain at the highest and super highest levels. So that's a little bit about the adaptive program. So every step of the way, the program adapts itself to the student. At the same time, students can actually have access to instructors. We offer unlimited support via email and our commentary system, as well as one-on-one tutoring sessions as part of the course. So that obviously we're also going to provide the students with full adaptive simulation exams and the marking of AWA essays with that. Now, a nice little thing we're going to do over here as well, to all of you listening right now, is that even the losers, meaning the people who are not winning the raffle over here, will have a chance to get a 10% extra discount on the course if they choose to come into our course and study with us. In addition, for the next hour or so, for anyone who registers on our course, they'll also get an additional 10% discount. We can certainly provide you with the promo code is webinar10, webinar all in capital letters and 10, and that's the promo code. We have an actual winner here, Eric.
Oh, great.
Okay, yeah, so the winner is govardhan.krishnan@gmail.com. So congratulations to who that is. You get yourself a free Master GMAT standard course. So we're probably going to be talking, as well as I'm a verbal instructor. If you need help, I'm going to be talking to you personally as well. So congratulations to you. And And yeah, to all of you who didn't, well, you can still get an additional 10% off. And thank you all for participating. We're going to be doing this again, certainly, and we're going to have to certainly, and we'll be giving away more prizes such as this one that's valued at $750. Not bad at all. And if anyone has questions, well, you can see instructors such as myself, Amit, and Geva, and Ilana on Beat the GMAT. We'll be more than happy to help you out.
Great.
Okay,
Well,
so that's about it.
Isaac, thank you so much. If you don't mind, there are two follow-up questions I saw
Sure.
coming in. The first was in that last CR question. Would you consider that to be a 700 level question?
Yeah, it's getting to the advanced questions at that stage, certainly. Okay,
Yeah.
we call that an advanced question, and it's really going to play with because it's actually deceiving. It's mixing up a few things over here. It's playing on the weakness of time, the time factor that students don't necessarily have. So having 2 minutes and under and solving this is quite tricky. B, it tries to confuse the student. Although it's an argument flaw question, it tries to confuse the student by putting in elements of conclusion weakening questions in here, as we saw with two of the answer choices that actually bring in a negativity. And students are often tricked in this question by those two answer choices. So yeah, it tricks the students on many, many levels over here.
Great. And one last question for you. This is from Reshma again, and she's asking, I have my GMAT in 2 weeks. Do you suggest that the practice cats would help now? So I guess using Master GMAT practice cats, is it a worthwhile investment of her time to practice with those in her last 2 weeks?
Absolutely, because in the last 2 weeks especially, that's the maximum amount of time before the exam. I would expect students to start with the exam practice. What you should be doing at this point is practicing an exam, quite, everything exactly in terms of exam conditions. So lock yourself in a room and just do it the whole way through. After you've done your exam, basically analyze every single question. One of the things in our cats is we obviously offer explanations. So you can go over the answer choices, make sure you understand. As an instructor, obviously I'm happy when a student gets a question right, but I don't care that much about that. What I care most about is, does the student actually understand why he or she got the question right or wrong? Okay, and that's very important. And also for someone like the student, we actually have a 2-week crash course. So, if they have the time, they can go through the crash course as well as the simulation exam. So they can go through the actual program and do the crash course and the simulation exams. What I would do is a simulation exam with 2 weeks left, every 2 to 3 days, and analyze. The analysis should actually take the student sometimes almost as long as the actual exam. That is super, super important. The exam itself, what you're trying to do is a few things here. Most importantly, you're trying to consolidate the knowledge that you've gained up to that point in terms of your learning. And B, you're trying to get used to the idea of time, how to manage your time. Where should you guess? Where should you not guess? Making sure that the first third of the exam is done as properly as possible, meaning the first third of each multiple choice section, as well as making sure that you finish each multiple choice section properly, not leaving anything blank. That's super, super important. So indeed, doing CATs at this point is super crucial.
Fantastic advice. So we're already seeing requests for people for Master GMAT to do a quant version of this session today. So
we certainly will.
We'd love to co-host that as well. So again, thank you so much to Isaac Bettan and Master GMAT for putting on this session today, and their generosity in offering a free course to a session participant, to Govardhan. Congrats, Govardhan. And again, as Isaac mentioned, if you want to reach out to the good folks at Master GMAT, you can go to mastergmat.com, but you can also find Isaac in our forums under the username Isaac at Master GMAT. So thanks again, Isaac,
Yeah.
Master GMAT.
Thank you all, by the way, for participating. I wish I could see all your faces. You know, as students, I'd love to see them, but hope to meet you soon virtually as well.
Great. Well, thank you, and thanks to everyone who participated today. We'll see you soon.
Great. Thanks. Ciao.